Welcome to First Responder Financial Freedom Podcast. We talk to first responders all over the nation who are investing and working on businesses outside of their first responder jobs. Our goal is to motivate and educate each other and help provide a better financial understanding for a better future. Now here are your hosts, Mike Webb, Tyler Thrush, and Aaron Foster.
Hey guys, Mike, Tyler, me, Aaron, and we got Jay today on from retired Louisville Fire Department. He was an investigator down there. He retired about 5 years ago. He did some training officers. He owns a real estate company, or owns a real estate business for properties. He's also a realtor. He's got a whole gambit of a resume to go into. So Jay, thanks for coming on and talking to us today. Where did you start before the fire department?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me on. I look forward to it. So before the fire department, I graduated college here at University of Louisville. Came from my dad was a firefighter, retired from City of Louisville. So I kind of grew up around that whole world. I remember a little kid, going to the firehouse on Christmas Day and things like that. So it's kind of how I came up in the fire service, graduated school. Got on as a volunteer, actually, local small fire department here in my hometown. Enjoyed it. Had an opportunity to go full time as a 24/48 firefighter when they first went to that shift or that type of schedule. So I took that position, man, and it just led me to where I am today. I mean, it's flown by.
So it sounds like you had a interesting career. So you did the fire, you did volunteer, then you got hired, and then you got into investigations, right?
Yeah, I spent 20 years on the fire company. I left the fire department that I was on as a company officer. I was a truck company officer. I had 20 years in, and I'd always wanted to do fire investigation. I took the test for Louisville Fire a few years prior, finished just outside of where I needed to be. So, I kind of knew what I needed to improve on. A couple years later, took the test for fire investigator with Louisville. And was fortunate enough to get hired there, and went through police academy. We were sworn police officers and such. Went through that academy at 39 years old, the oldest guy in my academy class, which was rough to say the least. But got through it fine, and got onto the street, did fire investigations for the city for several years. And then the schedule just wasn't great for my family life at the time. So ended up having some time, had bought some years, so was able to retire out of there as a fire investigator in 2017.
So let me ask you a question. Do you think, and this is like not positive or negative, do you think the fire department stood in your way of progressing in your other endeavors and your family?
I would say when I worked 24/48, that was the best schedule I've ever been on. I don't know what your all schedules are or your listeners, but I would suspect that a lot of them work a shift like that. That part was great for working real estate and working some investments and being able to be a realtor at that time. When I went to the fire investigation part of it, we worked 410s, but tons of on-call. So the on-call consisted of being at court, being on call at night, on weekends. So that kind of got in the way of building that business, and also kind of the relationship with my family a little bit. I was always kind of in a bad mood. I didn't sleep real well. Had a lot of things going on. So that kind of affected the family life. And so me and the wife kind of had to sit down, and it was continue with that job, or things may change at home. So I took my time and decided, you know what, I can cut my losses, retire out, and move on to something else.
A come to Jesus moment. Happy life, happy wife, happy life.
Absolutely.
Happy spouse, happy house. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, all right. So we did the fire department thing. We did the investigation thing. You retired in 2017. It's been 5 years since then. Like, when did you start investing or starting your own company?
So right after I had retired, I went back as a training officer position. That position was a 40-hour position. So that caused me some slowdown too. I'd always been, I'd been a licensed real estate agent in Kentucky since 2009, right after we had that terrible year in 2008. So it took a little while to get going in that. Had a really good client database, with all my fire department contacts, public service contacts. So I was able to work that a little bit and get some leads out of that. So once I got going in that world, which was, selling residential real estate for a couple different brokerages, that kind of led me into, hey, I want to get into this investing, right? The simplest and easiest way for me that I thought to get into was residential, mainly because I had a little bit of background in that. My dad had multiple rental properties growing up. That was his retirement gig. That was his retirement. He didn't do the stock market. He didn't do all this stuff. He invested in real estate. So I kind of knew a little bit about that. Did a lot of work on homes. Did a lot of painting, a lot of demo work, all that stuff. So that kind of piqued my interest as well. And I thought now might be a good time to start doing my own thing.
So I asked Tyler and Mike this too. So I know your dad had rental properties. Mike and Tyler, did you guys learn anything about real estate from your family when you were growing up before you got into this at all, or investing at all, Tyler?
Not my parents or anything, but my grandparents and aunts and uncles all owned rental properties or like commercial buildings and stuff like that. We never really discussed it, but you can just kind of see it, outside looking in.
Exposed.
Yeah.
Yeah, my parents had rental properties, and basically they got to the point of burnout landlord because they were doing it from about an hour away. So we had properties in the city of Pittsburgh, and knowing what I know now, it's not surprising that we had issues, but I got to see basically all the ins and outs of running and managing and demoing, and we were doing a lot of the work, and it was just, again, what I know now, I look back, I'm like, well, that was so stupid the way we did that, but so yes, I did get to see basically from, growing up standpoint, kind of what that looked like.
And Jay, how about you? As you said, your dad had rental properties. Did you learn stuff from him? Like, did he teach you to kind of oversee what you were doing? How'd that work?
Yeah, absolutely. Since I was a little kid, he's always had rental properties, always did flips, and I always saw it as really good. Like, things were going really well. But as I got older, I realized, and after talking to him, things weren't always going really well, right? When you're trying to mortgage one against the other and trying to get one sold or whatever, rent it out to make the next one, make the payment on the next one, it was tough. I never saw that from him, right? All I saw was his hard work and what he put into it to provide for the family and himself. So I did learn a lot from him for sure. He's old school, did all his own property management himself, dealt with his clients or his tenants, and just was really an old school guy, not like what's out there today, all these different property management companies and all this online stuff. He didn't deal with any of that. So it's definitely changed. And I learned a lot from him, but I've also learned how to make things easier for myself.
So it sounds like you have some systems in place. I know Mike and Tyler are big systems dudes. So let's talk about some systems real quick. Like, let's talk about some actual items. So Mike's a big systems guy. I know this because I know Mike. Mike, what system did you get in place to get into real estate, or once you got into real estate and started realizing like you needed to have things done? I know you have your property manager just recently moved on. So what are you doing to replace her?
So as far as like management goes, yes, I've gone through various phases where I was the manager, had a property manager, had in-house property management. And now right now for our rental properties, we've hired a management company that we have a relationship with. Internally, like a good one for systems right now where I've had to like cut my teeth over the last year or so is the Airbnb stuff. That is an extremely system intensive business, in my opinion, if you have more than one, even if you have one, because you have to build a system for turnover, response to clients or potential guests, just something as simple as having a system set up so that you replenish the site or the house or the cabin or whatever it is with paper towels, soap, toilet paper, that kind of stuff, making sure that there's a systematic process for mowing, leaf cleanup, garbage collection, that kind of stuff. So as far as property management, I've kind of delegated that out to a company, and now we manage the manager, which I have mixed emotions about because I think there's pros and cons to doing it that way. But that's how we're managing that system. It's just every Friday we pull the report out of Appfolio. We go over it in our team meeting, and then that's how we're managing that system right now.
What about you, Tyler? What systems did you put in place?
Mainly for me, it was for all the flips. I just had to figure out a way to do things remotely. So, I put in a weekly check-in sheet for all my flips. I had a Asana worksheets built out for my VA to keep track of all the utilities, all the projects, every insurance, all those things. And then Asana is just basically a task management software, right? They have Trello and things like that, but Asana basically, you can create systems that you have in your business, and then you can assign tasks to people. So I built out all these different individual tasks, and then I trained my VA on them, and then she took it over and took care of all these things. So I wasn't having to do all the day-to-day stuff. Just shooting lots of video.
That was one of those things I had no idea that was even a thing. Like, people are like, Asana, Trello, what is that? And think of it basically as a checklist. So you can basically, something that you're going to do repeatedly, for instance, switching utilities. That is a miserable experience if it's not able to be done online. So you can sit there and make a checklist. Like, this is how whenever we have a unit go vacant, this is how oh man, I didn't put it on airplane mode. It started ringing. My bad. If you don't want to have to call the utility companies every time you have a tenant turnover, a simple system is just like, this is the account number, this is the property address, this is who you call. If it's in this jurisdiction, you have to call this water company or this gas company or whatever. And then now you have a system, and you may have to improve that system down the road, but then you can delegate that off to somebody, like he said, his VA. And that's the kind of stuff that makes landlording, in my opinion, manageable, is little systems like that.
Yeah, people try to not try to complicate it, but they think it's more complicated than it is. If they can just figure out how to record themselves on their computer doing the tasks they do every day, your VA at that point will start building Asana out for you. Hey, go to Asana, watch all the training videos, and then watch my video and take what I'm doing and make a task list for it. And
you can record that on Loom,
Correct.
loom.com.
Yeah, Loom or Screencast-O-Matic are both free. So
you can even record the screen on your phone, like you doing stuff on your phone, and then save that as a file and send it. So it's pretty cool. But sorry, Jay, we kind of
how about you?
Sometimes we have these sidebar conversations.
We just got nerded out.
Hey, I'm learning a lot too. So you guys definitely do a little more than I do on that end of it. I still manage. I don't have a ton of property, so I still, being a full-time realtor, I still manage my own properties. Now, I don't know where you guys are at, but in the state of Kentucky, I'd have to have a broker's license in order to manage someone else's property. So I don't go down that road. I'm not a broker. So I'm able to manage my own properties, whether I have 5, 10, or 100, right? But I'm still new to the game, I guess you would say, still a little old school from my dad's way of thinking. I do a lot of stuff, just on my computer, manage my own properties. I am big on checklists. I think coming from the fire service, man, that was a thing, right? We always had daily checks. We always had stuff that we had to get done. And that's how we, got certified in things, right? Get checked off on certain things. So I kind of carry that over, and I have all kinds of checklists. Now, I'm fortunate enough, being a realtor, that I have access to our MLS and all of the documents that are already pre-built for me. Some of those I utilize. Some of those I have an attorney that I use to draw up leases and stuff for me. I don't like using the standardized lease, so I have him draw up these leases, and my leases are fairly simple, but I feel a little bit better knowing they're come from an attorney, instead of the ones you can get online, things like that. So I do a lot myself, and it's just easier for me because, working every day for myself, I have time.
So it sounds like you have your own type of systems in place. It's a time management thing. And I'm the same way. Like, when I know I have time, then I'll fill it up with voids rather than spending money to have somebody else do it. Then I have the free time. Like today, I've got a lot of free time just because I don't have anything on my schedule except for hanging out with you knuckleheads.
Yeah.
And the thing is like, your time is obviously very, very valuable. I don't have kids. Obviously, Mike Tyler does. I'm sure you do too. So like that's a number one priority in families and people's lives. So you have to assign tasks to somebody else or figure out ways to cut time, like building out leases or building out Excel spreadsheets. So this is just a tip for everybody. If you go into some of these groups for real estate investing, go in the file section. There's a lot of these free files, whether it be an Excel spreadsheet or a Word document to kind of, it's already built out for you. So get access to free documents, just like Jay was saying, get, the leases off of the land or his MLS company is. So Jay, when did you start investing in property? Like when did you start buying your first properties? Was it while you're in the fire department or after?
Yeah. So right after I had left Louisville Fire, I started getting some properties. I purchased most of them from my dad. He's kind of getting out of the business. He had upwards of 30 some odd homes. So he started kind of getting up in age and was like, hey, I'm done with these. So I'm going to start, phasing them out. So we've sold some of them for him. We flipped some, he needed some that the tenants moved out. So we just fixed them up and flipped them, got rid of them. I purchased a few from him. So I would say, right after I kind of got out of the fire department, I kind of got really heavily interested in it. But then realized very quickly that it still takes money, in my opinion, to make money, right? I mean, there's hard money lenders and all this stuff out there, but what's the avenue that's best for me? So I was able to find a good avenue and able to get going in it.
Are you using hard money lenders to purchase properties right now?
I am not currently using hard money lenders. I know a few of them here. I belong to a group called CREA, which is the Kentucky Real Estate Investors Association. And we meet monthly and that sort of thing. And great networking event, lots of knowledge over there, lots of hard money lenders. So they're out there. There's a ton of them. But I'm not currently using them. So I can't really speak on how well they do. I do have some investor friends that are in the Airbnb business, and they've used some hard money lenders. And yes, you're paying a little bit more up front. But what they have told me is as you get more under your belt, get more seasoned, as they call it, you're able to negotiate some terms a little bit better with some of these lenders.
So I'm seeing I had this conversation last night with a friend of mine who wants to buy a project this wintertime. So she was asking about hard money, and here it seems like private money is anywhere from 6 to 10%, and then hard money is anywhere from 10 to 15%, and anywhere from 1 to 3 points. So anybody listening, a point is a percentage of the purchase price of the property. So if it's 1% of $100,000, it's $1,000. If it's 2 points, it's 2%, which is $2,000. Tyler and Mike, what have you guys seen for numbers wise in your areas? Mike's, you're close to me, so our numbers are probably similar.
I'm lending at 3 and 12.
3 points, 12%.
Yeah. And most of my borrower, like when I borrow, I'm paying no points and 10% pretty typically. But most of those folks I have relationships with, I've used them for a while. So like they basically just keep reinvesting with us. But yeah, most of I've seen them 5 and 15, and you're starting to see some of those rates go up as like, institutional debt keeps going up. So, but I would say anywhere from what you just said, 12 to 15 for hard money, private money, 8 to 10. I'm not seeing any 6% private money, but I guess I need to talk to whoever you are.
You already used my bank, so you can have them too.
That's a good rate. No, yeah, I do. I same thing. I lend out at 12 and 2. I think the most I've ever paid was 12 and 2 for the first deal I ever did. But most of the time I'm borrowing money at 10 and 1. And I think it's all worth it. It's private money is so easy. I will gladly pay that 10 and 1. And I just base off of all of my purchases off that. If you know what your debt's going to cost and you build it into your acquisition, there should be no problem. I mean, it's a stupid example, but you could borrow at 20 and 2 as long as you build that in to your purchase price. I think a lot of people get hung up on the 12 and 2 or at the 15%. They say it's too expensive. Well, if you build it in and on the purchase side, it shouldn't be too expensive because you've already allocated for that. And it's a great tool. I love private money, man. Every time, I see, institutional debt, yeah, it's cheaper, but there's a lot more hoops to jump through. And that has its place too. And some of it's really cheap. Like I know Kiabi's down like at 8%, and they're fairly simple. But for an extra percent, if all I have to do is send a text message and the money's coming to me, I'll pay that percent.
Yeah.
Mike?
I was just gonna say, like, to Tyler's point, like a lot of people balk at the like, wait a second, they're gonna pay $3,000 up front plus 13%. Like, yeah, because they need the ability to move fast. Like Tyler said, with a text message, like, so this isn't like this is just like the point. So like we had some opportunities come up, and with literally probably a half a dozen text messages and phone calls, we were able to borrow 7 figures from exactly what he just said. And that allowed us the opportunity to move quick, seize the opportunity at the price we wanted and lock it up. Versus if you're using some of those institutional places, yeah, you might, instead of 10%, I might be able to get for 6, but I probably would have taken 2 or 3 weeks and would have lost the opportunity. So like sometimes you have to pay for that speed and simplicity. So I think it's one of those things, because I can tell you, whenever I first started, the very first rental I bought, the person I was working with told me 5 and 15. And like, I could not get past that in my head. And I still don't want to pay 5 and 15. Don't get me wrong. But now I'm just like, if the deal makes sense for me at that, if I'm going to pay 5 points and 15%, like, don't worry about what that guy's making. You see it with wholesaling too. People are happy to buy the house that you offered, the $150,000 house that you're selling for 79 because it needs work. But then they see that you're making a $20,000 assignment fee once you send over the contract. And now all of a sudden they want to renegotiate because they see you're making 20 G's. And it's like, hey man, the number made sense for you at 79. Don't worry about what I'm making. Same thing. Don't worry about what your lender's charging. If it works for you, use it. I'm not saying you shouldn't constantly be shopping or looking for better opportunities, but like, don't worry about the fact that you're paying 3 points and 13% if the deal still makes sense. That's all. Because if it doesn't make sense at 3 and 13, it probably doesn't make sense at 5 and 15 either.
So Jay, when you use hard money, how do you use it as a tool? Like, what do you do? Like, do you buy it with hard money and then refi? Do you buy it with hard money and then sell it? Like, what do you do? Or
so I do not use hard money right now.
Okay.
I have an avenue to get money that's not a hard money lender, which I'm very fortunate to be in that position. But exactly what you guys are talking about, we're 10 and 2 is about what we're looking at here in Louisville. And as you become more seasoned, from what I understand from the guys that are using it, that's negotiable a little bit, right? So, but I think exactly what Mike had said, if the numbers work for you, like the numbers may be different for all 4 of us, right? But if that number, that end game works for you, then it's a good deal. And I don't mind. I don't, one thing we talked about my dad earlier, one thing he did, he had a cash money backer. They paid cash for everything. They go to commissioner sales, pay cash, pay cash, pay cash. So I kind of got that mindset of got to pay cash for everything. And that's not necessarily the best way sometimes. I don't think they understood leverage as well as I do. Leverage something against it. I mean, he does understand that I have mortgages on my properties, right? He said, why don't you pay cash for them? Well, I'm not in a position to pay cash for them. And if I was, why do I want to put all that money into a property if I'm only cash flowing X amount of dollars? I would rather put 20% down, right? Or whatever the case may be, and be able to use that additional $100,000 to purchase more properties. So it took me a little while to get into that mindset because I was always taught debt is bad. And I believe it is, but I think there's some good debt that can help build your business quicker. So I don't use hard money lenders. There may be a time that I need to, but I'm not buying properties that are, 250 to 500,000 either. I try to shop in under the median here in Louisville. I'm looking for stuff, 150 to 200, 225.
God, I wish I could do that around DC. That would be amazing.
Yeah.
So
well, it's getting a lot harder, but we're still pushing forward.
Man, so when you mentioned you have other avenues to get money, I do. So last year I structured a lot of my deals to get HELOCs. So I got a bunch of HELOCs right now to have access to money at a fixed rate. So I know I can get it at, I think the lowest is 3.25% is one of my HELOCs. And I think the maximum right now is like 6% or 6.5%.
Is that locked or does that float?
It's locked. So that's one of the ones I got with the bank that we share. You and I share.
You should definitely lend that money out.
Yeah. And I got it a couple of years ago. So it's locked for a significant amount of time. So I agree. One of the avenues I need to go down, Mike. But that's just a strategy is you can use hard money, you can use HELOC, you can use cash out refi money, but it's a fixed rate amount coming out. Tyler said he's going to borrow a 6.5 and 2 points from me, or Mike did. So like if you get access to hard money, you have a fixed rate coming that you know it's going to be. So as long as you overcome that number, then it's a good strategy. For me, if I use my HELOC, then I'd have a fixed rate that I know I'm going to pay out. I know I have to pay back, so I know my spreads and my percentages. So what everybody said today so far is, you know what you have to get into percentage wise. You have to expense it out on your sheet when you're running your expense report, when you're going to flip it, and then turn around and make a profit on top of that. Like it's relatively simple numbers as long as you know your percentages. So now as a realtor, what are you seeing with the market, with investing, with people, with the rates? Like from a realtor's perspective in a different part of the country, what do you think is going on and where it's going? And
yeah. So matter of fact, I just looked this morning. Your current 30-year fixed conventional loan is right at 7% right now. Don't know where you guys are at, but that's a lot for here in Louisville, right? Historically, it's not terrible, but we had 2.5% and 3% money for a long time here, and we had properties in our market, nice homes going for $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 over list price, and they're waiving the appraisal, waiving inspections, whatever, right? I do not recommend that as a realtor. I never recommended that to my clients, but we see them come across our table all the time. People were losing deals. People are losing deals paying $40,000 over cash offer, $40,000 over list price. All that has kind of settled a little bit. So I call it like kind of a cooling off period. Rates are still a little high. Exactly what the federal government's trying to do. I think they're trying to get to that point. But with the inflation and what they're doing with the rates, but there's still buyers out there. One of the things that we always say is, if you like the house, get the house. The rates are not always going to stay where they're at. You can refinance it down the road. Houses, in my opinion, at least in our market, are not going to be significantly cheaper next year. I had some people on the fence saying, hey, I'm not going to pay over list price. And we lost out on several deals. And I told them, I said, this is the market we're in. If you're not prepared for that, then maybe you need to sit the bench for a while. They chose to sit the bench, and we're going to wait till the market crashes like 2008 and get these for pennies on the dollar. I said, it's not going to happen like 2008.
I agree.
It's just not. I think we may see a slight decline, but it's not going to crash. It's not the same dynamics. It's not the same setup. So people are buying, and I think it's flushed some of the non-serious buyers out of the market, but it's also kind of transitioned. It was a huge seller's market, right? It basically, what we joked about was, we just take the contract to the seller and say, hey, you go ahead and fill this out, what you guys feel is right, and then we'll sign it, right? Because they were in control, not so much anymore. So I think people are starting to realize that, they're not going to get those $30,000 and $40,000 and $50,000 over list price now. Sellers got super greedy, and buyers were paying for it.
So you think about it from a realtor perspective, right? Because I was doing a lot of flipping, and I pretty much made a deal with myself. I'm not going to do any more of that for a while. So you were saying they're getting 30, 40, 50 grand over asking on like a 250 house, 300 house, whatever. Okay. So, and this is like a little bit of the psychology, like the interest rates have gone from like 2.5 to 6.5. Okay. But while your rate has gone up noticeably, your ability to now negotiate for not paying 30, 40, 50 grand over on a 250 house, which I don't know what that is as a percent, but it's a lot. You can negotiate seller concessions, inspections. Yeah. Hey, that roof, I want a repair credit. Like, whereas before you weren't able to get any of that. So like you very well could make up what you're going to spend in that 2.5 to 6.5% increase by having a little more negotiating power. And like you said, the rates don't stay the same. There's nothing stopping you from whenever they do whatever the normal is. Like, I think we were just experiencing the abnormal for the last couple of years, and now we're back to normal. And now everybody's like, holy hell, Yeah. But, say rates dip back down to 4.5 or something for whatever reason, because we have some new flu, right? So then they do that, you lock in, then boom, history's bound to repeat itself. And you just kind of see it. But to your point, like everybody's like, do you ever see the meme where it's like, I'll just wait till the market cools off, but it shows the picture of Tom Brady in his rookie year versus like now. It just shows him like keep getting better with all these Super Bowl rings. I don't know, he might be losing a ring, but whatever. So like I saw that thing Aaron sent. But anyways, but seriously, like, do you really think the price of things are going to go down significant enough to basically you're going to get in at a better time? And I had this conversation the other day. Like, you look at the local gas stations, the people that work there, I don't know what's minimum wage right now, like $7, $8?
$7.25.
Yeah.
Okay, $7.25. They're starting them at like $18 or $22 an hour. Do you really think that like they're ever going to be able to get people to really work a lot for $7.25 there? No. So like you just keep seeing like, hey, as they keep having to pay people more to work, things cost more as a result. And I don't really see that coming back down anytime soon or ever really, you know, maybe a little bit like you said, might cool off, but is it really going to go back to like, you're going to go from making $20 an hour down to $7.25?
Right.
Probably not.
Jay, the demographics of the area that you're selling in, is it a medium, large, small city? Like what's your area like?
I would say, I mean, we sell in Louisville, Kentucky, right, in the surrounding county. So I would say it's medium would be probably low, medium to large, pretty decent area around. Usually a lot of more houses on the MLS, right? So we're running right around 2,000 in our MLS, which is significantly low for us. But, you know, there's a lot of people are trying to get out of the city living. They're kind of done with the whole let's live in the city and let's try to venture out of it. So a lot of our sales and a lot of what we're seeing is people making a shift to getting something out, you know, 15, 20, 30 minutes from maybe downtown. And they're not afraid of that commute because they're getting a little bit better deal or a little bit better home in these surrounding areas. And they feel like they're just out of the city and out of the drama and the mess that comes with, you know, a medium to large city.
So one of the reasons I ask that is because when you look at real estate, it's hard to paint the picture of real estate with a broad stroke of a brush. So you have people who are going to live in the city. You have people who are going to live in houses, condos, townhouses, row houses. So you have to look at the demographics and the micro and macro content of these houses and say, okay, is a recession going to affect these multi-million single family houses, or are they going to affect the secondary or tertiary market, you know, more? So the reason I ask is the size of the area that you're selling in is because it's going to affect these tertiary markets with a pullback or a stagnation in the market more than it will with a large city. So do you think the secondary markets in your area are going to get hit harder if there is a pullback or a stagnation?
Potentially. I don't, I mean, likely you're probably right. Likely that they will be affected some, but you know, we see it all over the place right now. It's been consistent as far as the amount of homes that we have in the inventory, right? It's just the dynamics and what's happening with the buyers versus sellers is kind of what's changing, right? The properties aren't changing. So what that's going to look like on those other markets, I don't know.
Yeah, since you've been selling since 2009. So I was bought my first investment property in it was like 04, 05 or something like that. Maybe it was 03, who knows? But I remember like that recession vividly because of watching everything go up to 400,000 down to 100,000. Like it was a ridiculous change. Do you think there's going to be a big pullback? Do you think it's going to be stagnation? What do you think?
I think we're looking at, you know, a stagnation. I think this winter and into 2023 is going to be unpredictable for people, but I think that I think we're just going to remain still. I think people are nervous about what's happening with the economy, recession. You know, are we going to have a recession? Are we in a recession? Who, you know, what if it depends on who you talk to, you know, which route we're going. But I think 2023 is going to be pretty still. I think they're concentrating on what's going to happen for the next election and see, you know, where are we going as a country? Do I want to commit to moving? You know, these people that are in their homes that wanted to move, that were like, man, I can get 50,000 more for my house, but where am I going to move to? Right? I'm not getting a better deal. So those sellers are just sitting now even at 4.5% or 5%, they're like, I can get 3.5% money. Well, now they're sitting on their 5% 30-year mortgage, and they're like, I feel pretty good about where I'm at. Why would I move right now? So I think we're going to see just people being stagnant. But I tell you what, I think is going to continue to be in high demand is rentals. Our rental market in Louisville is just as short as our houses inventory is. So our rent rates have skyrocketed here. I mean, we're talking 40, 50%, maybe similar to your all's market, but it's a lot. And then, you got people complaining all the time. I can't afford rent, and there's no real laws in Kentucky that says that I have to charge you X amount of dollars. I'm a landlord. I can charge you what I want. If you want to pay,
there's a reason we don't buy rentals where Tyler lives. No, I'm just kidding.
So Mike, you're in Maryland, but you invest
including myself.
Yeah. But like Tyler's in different markets, Mike's in different markets. Like, have you guys seen the same thing, the increase in rent and like the people not being able to afford it? Like, what do you guys seen?
So I can't say anything about the people can't afford it part, but we've definitely been able to raise our rents. And I mean, I feel like we're somewhat conservative. Like we could probably even go a little gangbusters if we wanted to, like raising them even further. But, like for instance, like something we bought, and this is like one of our nicer rentals, don't get me wrong. Like we anticipated it being able to be rented for like 16, maybe $1,700. We just got 2,000 and they put 10 grand down as a security deposit if we let them have a dog. It's a little dog. They're going through a divorce, long story. But I'm like, man, I don't really want Fido in there. But then I just negotiated as a part of the agreement is we went in every 30 days to change the air filters in the HVAC system so I can make sure Fido's not effing it up. You know what I mean? But like that's as a percent, I don't know what that is because like I'm not very good at math. Just ask my parents or my son. But we thought we were going to rent for 1,600. We're getting 2,000. And that was in the period of like 4 to 6 months of evaluating the deal to putting it on the market. But a bunch of our other stuff was, we used to rent it for 700. Now it's 1,100.
Yeah.
So Mike, one of the things I don't want to graze over that. So I know you do checks on the property. We get to do like a safety inspection by checking the alarms, checking the filters, whatever it might be. It's a way to get in there and look at the property and the condition of it to see if they're not screwing it up. So that's a good tip for anybody listening. Who wants
we call it our safe and secure inspection, and we really champion it as like, which is true, that we are checking all of that, the smoke detectors, CO detectors, and that kind of stuff. And we kind of say like it's a part of the insurance company requires it, which is not 100% all true. They do require it, but not twice a year. But because you'll get some people that are like, no, I don't want you in there. I'm like, well, tough shit. Like, here's your notice. Like we are coming in to look at it. And it's because we do want to check those things, but we also want to see the way it's being kept. And we usually, so this is kind of along those lines. Once somebody moves in, 30 to 45 days after they move in, we like to come back for some sort of maintenance issue. Like, hey, when they're moving in, we'll tell them like, hey, we're waiting on a part, or we need to do something with the HVAC system or whatever. And we will do something, but it's mainly so that we can go back in there 30 to 45 days after they move in and just kind of see what it looks like. That way they've had a chance to maybe move in, settle in, and you can kind of get an idea of the general housekeeping within a month and a half. And then every 6 months and every 12 months, we do the safe and secure inspections. And what we do is when we were self-managing, our property manager and like a handyman would go out and they would just try and knock them out all in one day, or do like this half today, this half tomorrow. And they would show up with smoke detectors, CO detectors, take a couple tubes of caulk, the common stuff that we would routinely have to replace. That way, if they're there, it can shoot a bead of caulk, you can put up a smoke detector, whatever the case may be. It saves you from having to get back in there to do another visit. But, the tenant liked it because, oh, my landlord's coming in and fixing stuff, even if it's minor. We get to kind of see what it looks like. And we would take photos during this process, save it in Google Drive. So we have like chronological evidence in case something changes down the road. And we would, hey, this house has an electric hot water heater, 40 gallons, that has an electric stove, blah, blah, blah. And we would keep like spec sheets on each property. That way, if hey, the water heater at Tabler Station went out, I know, hey, it's a 40-gallon electric hot water heater. Here's a picture of it. Send it to the guy. Here's a lockbox code or whatever. And he just goes and does it versus trying to then figure out what was there, what condition it was in, where it was located, all that kind of stuff. So you can use those inspections as a multi-pronged function, I guess. So.
Jay, do you do anything like that?
I do. So a lot of that stuff is built into my lease. I look at it this way too. Like I try to treat people like I would want to be treated if I was renting a property, right? You hear these horror stories about landlords, and not all of us are bad, right? The slum lords and all that stuff. That's not all of us, right? People, they deserve to have a nice place to live. So I just try to I vet them the best I can. I try to get the right people, credit checks, everything we're all doing, all that sort of stuff. But I just treat them as people too. If they got a problem, they got my cell phone. And again, I'm not managing as many properties as you guys probably are, but I'm super personable. I have they can call me. I just haven't had a problem. If they call me, I get it taken care of right away. I have a list of contractors as well as everyone else. I got ones that I know that I can get there quickly. If they have a plumbing issue, I can get a guy there quick, right? I have found if you just treat them like people, man, they usually reciprocate that. Now, there's horror stories too, right? You get people take advantage of you. But overall, I've had pretty good luck with guy calls me, something's going on with my shower. All right, I'll be there. I'll have somebody there today if I can, right? And when you treat them like that and they're like, man, you really got your people there quickly. My last landlord didn't do that, right? All they were good about was raising my rent. I was like, well, I just try to treat people differently. I've been lucky with that.
So I've got a property that I'm raising the rates on. I'm raising it $300 because I couldn't raise it during COVID. And my property manager was like, that, she's only paying $1,500 in this property. I was like, tell her I apologize that I couldn't, be on top of it during COVID. But now that COVID's over, like you got a really good deal in the house before I rented it to you. And now, I'm playing catch up because of it. So one of the things you said was you're curious to see what happens with the next political movement. So in 2024, whoever gets voted in is going to change some of the dynamics of the rental properties and the ownership. And, everybody who doesn't think that going out and voting makes a difference, it actually does, because you have to vote for somebody who's going to make your life better. And not to get too political, let's go Brandon. But you have to realize like there's decisions these people are making are affecting us on a day-to-day life. And yes, if there is a national shortage or international shortage of microchips, and there's a drawback across the other parts of the country, like even in Ireland a couple of years ago, you were maxed out at raising rent 3%. I think Mike talked about it in a couple of podcasts ago. So a lot of the landlords just sold their properties because it makes more sense for them to invest in something else where they make more than a 3% growth.
Like goats,
like investing in goats. I'm looking at the bamboo I have to cut down right now. I really not looking forward to it. But there's other ways to make money other than real estate. So if you're not owning in real estate, like Jay does realtor stuff. So he makes probably 3% commission on sale and purchase of properties instead of buying, or in addition to it, buying real estate. So how did you get into being a realtor? Like, why did you choose that path and on top of being a real estate investor?
Yeah. So, when I was in the fire department, everyone had a side gig, right? I cut grass. I did stuff like everyone else did. So everyone had a side gig. And I just, coming up from seeing my dad with the rentals and doing some flips and working with him, it just made sense to me. And honestly, it's not that hard to be a real estate agent. You sign up, you take some classes, you pass a test, and you're dealing with large sums of money, and you can be the dumbest person on earth and still be a realtor, right? We deal with them every day. So it would just make sense. It's something that I could get quickly. You can get something done in I think I took several months to get my license because of the way I was working. But you can go to a 2-week school, get it, pass your class, sign up, take the test. The next thing you know, you're golden, right? You don't understand anything about the math that's on there, but you're a realtor, and you just go out and you start dealing with hundreds of thousands of dollars. And but I had that interest. I had that interest of what am I going to do after I'm done with the fire service, right? We can't, our bodies can only handle so much. And there's a time that we separate ourselves. For me, that time was May of 2022, totally separated from the whole service. I did teaching, I did all kinds of stuff for the state, cut my ties with all that.
Did you have, I don't want to, did you have any identity issues after that? Were you ready to hang it up, or did you struggle with that? Because this is something we've talked about with Ian Horowitz, and I know him and Dan talked about, but I was just curious, as somebody that's gone through it somewhat recently, did you have that issue?
Yeah, I mean, I did for a brief time, but again, I keep reverting to my dad. It's just because he lived in that world too. And I told him, I said, Dad, when do you know it's time, right? And he says, when you get out of bed and you don't enjoy going to work, it's time. You're done. And I got to that point in my career and I was done. I'd done all I could do. There was a chance I would have got promoted again and all that. But, the fire service is drastically different from 1995. The whole makeup, the dynamics, the EMS service, more people, more problems, right? So it was time for me to go.
Granddaddy's fire department.
Yeah, and good, and it probably needed to change a lot in a lot of ways, but it was just time. But I tell you, after that first little bit, I would hear sirens and things going off around my house. Like, man, I wonder where they're going. Now it doesn't even faze me. Like, I'm done with that part. That book for me is closed. So short identity crisis, I guess, but not very long.
As the money started rolling in, the identity crisis started going away, right?
Well, I'm still waiting on the money to roll in, but it's trickling in.
So we're got like 45 minutes into this. So I want to start getting into your plans for the future. So I know that you want to start getting into Airbnb. You're looking at boat storage in 2023. Like, what's the plan moving forward? Like, what are you getting into?
Yeah. So, I'm really big on trying to educate myself before I dive into something. So I've been looking at Airbnbs for quite a while, kind of trying to understand that a little bit. I have some people that within my group, within the investor group I'm in, that deals strictly with Airbnbs, right? We have a small little podcast as well that we do, and we try to bring people on, guests like that. And that's one of my goals, is to bring them on, tell our listeners and educate us about the Airbnb world, right? But it seems to be one of those things that people can make a significant amount of money in it. Long-term rental, I'm renting something for $1,500 a month, and I'm cash flowing whatever I'm cash flowing on it. But Airbnb, I rent to travel nurses or something like that, or a family that's wanting to vacation for, 3 or 5 night, minimum stay. And you look and you're like, man, I can make triple or more on that property, Airbnb in it, right? Yeah, you're going to pay them a percentage, but that's no different. That's just the price of doing business. So I'm kind of looking at, I don't own any Airbnbs. I don't even have anything under contract that would consider to be an Airbnb. But in 2023, I'd like to. The boat storage thing, interests me too. I have a friend of mine, I think he was on your all's podcast, Dylan Leonard, a while back.
Never
that's
heard of him.
Does self-storage. Man, Dylan is full of knowledge, right? Younger guy, but
he's a hungry younger fellow.
Yeah, he is. I sat down with him. I called him. I said, man, I know nothing about storage business, but will you meet with me? We sat down and met. And I'm not a commercial real estate guy. I mean, I can do some commercial, but I'm definitely, he understands all the cap rates and all that stuff that I don't really grasp in residential. So he educated me a lot about that avenue, and it got me interested. And I'm thinking, we have a place down at the lake. So I was like, I pass all these boat storages and they're always constantly full. They're always building new ones. So, I have a small piece of property, commercial piece of property that I'm thinking about just making a boat storage, right? It'll start out super small. It'll probably be, a roof and some sides. Won't have a front on it or anything like that, and see how that takes me. But just different ways of just different streams of income. That's what I'm looking for in 23.
So a buddy of mine, he's big into the boat world at the Delaware-Maryland border over by the beaches. And he was saying how the owner of the boat company out there is looking at buying high-end storage for high-end boats. And I was like, what does that entail? He broke it down for me, and I'm going to make up numbers because I really don't remember what they are. He's like $7 per foot to wrap a boat. He goes, and you wrap a boat, it's 40 foot long. He goes, you make money that way. And then you make, $25 per month, per 10 feet of storage through the wintertime, and winterizing. Like, there's a lot of add-ons you can do for boat storage. I mean, I don't know enough about it to really other than conversational purposes. But it seems like once you get it down, you have it down for life. And it's just like any other type of real estate. Like once you learn a different facet of that investing category, like you have it for life. So Airbnb still makes me nervous, having two of them, because the market's very, very saturated, and Airbnb changed the way they promote. They're trying to go more towards unique properties. So on the front of the Airbnb page, you usually see very unique properties, very high end properties. And the reason is, I mean, it's like anything else, is money. Like they make more money off of the higher end stuff that rents more. It's the mom and pop stuff that they started on, which was actually like an airbed in somebody's house, has changed. Like the whole dynamic in the business structure that's changed. So,
Jay, you'd be surprised. I don't know what your residential rental portfolio is, but everything you just mentioned, basically we've tried with the traveling nurses and the people on vacation, all that stuff.
Yeah.
Where most of ours are is not a destination location, but what we've done is we've taken some of our like 1 bedroom, 1 bath apartments. We've gone in and made it look like a Chipotle and Starbucks had a baby,
Yeah.
right? And like put some sheet metal and crap everywhere and sit there and furnish it. Just have like 4,000 Amazon packages delivered, assemble everything, clean it up. So like a 1 bedroom, 1 bath apartment that we were renting for $700 now brings in $2,100 a month.
Right.
So it doesn't necessarily have to be like go buy some cabin in Gatlinburg or whatever. Our best Airbnbs right now are what I just described, not necessarily the cabin I have in the woods.
Well, I think people are very visual, right? That's what they want to see. They want to see that flashiness. They want to see that, we looked at some properties, some lofts and stuff down in the old historic area, had exposed brick, right? And they had the wood up above was all sprayed black, and that historic, just unique look. That stuff sells, right? So
yeah,
I don't know.
You can replicate that though in like your regular rentals, because like I sit there and put some shiplap halfway up the wall with like a chair rail, and nothing that's like, in my opinion, that big of a deal, but it sets you apart.
Yeah.
From a lot of the other, like a Days Inn hotel room. They're going to stay at your place because it just looks a little bit nicer. It's cleaner. It's whatever.
Makes memories.
Yeah. So just what you were saying, like about Airbnb, like your barrier to entry could be $2,000 worth of Amazon purchases. Put it in there, try it out. If you don't like it, you can always pull back and just switch it back to a long-term rental. So, but yeah.
Jay, where are you looking at buying? Is it all going to be in that Louisville, Kentucky area?
So, like one of you mentioned, it's pretty saturated. I think it was you, Aaron, saying it's kind of saturated in around right now, the Airbnb. But same way here in Louisville, we have ordinances inside the city of Louisville. An Airbnb can't be within 600 feet of another Airbnb, right? Unless you're zone commercial, then it doesn't matter. So a lot of these guys are looking for properties that are zone commercial, and they'll buy, a couple, 2 or 3 of them right next to each other, Airbnb all out. If it's residential, you can't do that according to ordinances, right? So we have to have, all the hearings. We got to go in front of the neighborhood board and pitch our project. And, I heard guys that just, the neighborhoods push back so much that they just scrap it, make it a long-term rental, or they may 1031 it or something, whatever, to get rid of it, right? But I would say if I get into this, I'm thinking I will. It'll be close by me somewhere. It'll be small, little entry level type Airbnb to see how I can do it. I see people making money on it, and I think it can be done, but I think there's so many rules to play by right now, at least where we're at. We got to be careful, and we've had people before. I've heard stories of investors using agents to buy a property that's Airbnb, and that's their intention. And then they close on this property, and they go to do it, and they realize can't do it.
No bueno.
So
just buy a boat, Airbnb that to people, and then you can store it in your new boat storage joint.
I mean, there's people. Yeah, you speak of boats. There's people renting out houseboats and for like Airbnb style stuff. So eventually, I think like the industry, like the hotel industry, will use their power to kind of tame these Airbnbs down. That's my opinion, because they're going to start losing money. You maybe not your big Marriotts and stuff, but some of your smaller ones are going to start losing money because people aren't going to go there. They're going to stay in Airbnb.
That's happening now.
You look at it now though, like honestly, if I was going to go to DC, I'd probably just stay at a hotel, because a lot of the pricing, and I'm just using DC as an example, a lot of the pricing, whenever you look at the per night price now with a lot of Airbnbs. You can stay at a hotel for a comparable price, and you have a certain level that what you're going to, like if you go stay at the Hyatt, what you're going to pretty much get. The thing with Airbnb is like, if you're just looking for like an average place, like the service can be all over the place.
Right.
So I don't know. I think you're like, to Aaron's point, he's nervous about Airbnbs. Me personally, I would never go buy like a destination Airbnb right now where I had to rent it to a family of 12 every week for half the year, or else I'm bust. I'm just doing it with like the bread and butter little places that I pretty much already had. And then that way, as these laws and demands and whatnot change, I can switch back to a long-term rental. And it's like no harm, no foul. I rode the wave while I could. Now I just course correct and we're back to long-term rentals. So
a buddy of mine is building over a 10,000 square foot house right now, and it has beautiful sunsets. It backs to ski
does
slope.
he work for Howard County? Jeez, 10,000 square feet. Good
10,000 square feet up in Deep Creek.
It's one of the richest counties in the country. They're right by us.
Yeah. So his plan is to have indoor pool, indoor hot tub, outdoor hot tub, sunsets, you back to ski slopes, you back to the whitewater rafting course. Like, it's going to be a beautiful house, but that makes me nervous because his build out is, I think it's $1 to $2 million or something crazy. Whereas I'm on the other spectrum. Like, I want a 500 to 600 square foot property because it's a whole lot easier to fix, turn, and repair something that size versus 10,000 square feet. Because if 10,000 square feet, something goes wrong, then people are going to focus on that one little thing in 10,000 square feet. So it's easier and faster to fix something that's more of a micro size. So the plans for you next. So boat storage, real estate, and investing in Airbnbs, hopefully. Right. What else is in the near future? Like, what else do you have planned?
So I'm going to accumulate some more rental properties. People are always saying, "Oh, it's a terrible time to buy rentals." I don't necessarily agree with that. I think there's going to be some deals coming up. I think there's going to be some people that are going to have to unload some homes. And if I can capitalize on something like that, I will. So yeah, if I could pick up a few more this year, I would be happy with that. So yeah.
So we're getting into 56 minutes. So I'm going to get a couple more questions in while we have it. Tyler and Mike, is there anything I missed that you guys want to highlight?
No. I agree with you. I think now is going to be a good time to buy rentals. I think we're going to be able to swoop in on a lot of stuff. And I don't see, long term, we know, right? 5-10 years down the road, we're going to be happy we bought them. Just like everything we were worried about, at least everybody around me when COVID was starting, nobody wanted to buy anything. And now all those look like phenomenal investments.
Mike, you got anything?
No, like what Jay said earlier, I think a lot of times people get worried like, oh, I'm not marketing to sellers, or I'm not doing direct mail, I'm not doing Airbnbs, I'm not doing 100 deals. Like he said, he's just kind of sticking to the fundamentals, like buying rentals that cash flow. He answers his phone, he takes care of stuff, and it makes money. Like, this business does not need to be overly complicated. And he's just talking about like being a realtor and how that kind of gives you a competitive edge. But I don't know. It's just, it's kind of cool to see somebody that's kind of just stayed, like, I don't want to say slow and steady, because that's not what I mean, like not in like a derogatory way, but like just stayed the course. And like, here you are, you were able to retire. You didn't have to like, go get another job with a pension and all that stuff. You're able to kind of chart your own path now. And that identity crisis, you said it lasted a brief amount of time, but now you're probably, I don't want to put foot in my mouth, but you're probably not fighting at home as much about your schedule and all your other commitments and being tired and being on call. Like, do things come up in this business? Sure. But like, it's kind of cool to see somebody that's kind of like gone full cycle, so to speak, like gone from fire department to like self-employed or like a hybrid, and then now just completely self-employed. So yeah. I don't have anything else, but I don't know. Tyler's now talking about the import export business. So
Jay, so going forward, do you think that from your professional standpoint of real estate investment and as a realtor, do you think real estate investing is still a good option and viable option for people?
Man, I think it's the best option, depending on who you follow. Like I'm not anti-stock market. I have some money in there, but most of my money is tied up in real estate. I'm a kind of a statistic type guy. Like look back in history and see what's not failing long term. Right. For me is real estate. It's not going to, we're not going to lose all of our money in real estate like we possibly could in stock market. I bought into the whole Bitcoin type thing, and I got some of that, right? But I'm not sold that that's going to retire me and make me, live on a yacht somewhere. But I think everybody should have, if they have the ability to purchase a rental or have some type of investment in their portfolio, I think they should. I truly believe that. And, for me, it's going to be the more the merrier. I'd like to have more than where I'm at now, but I'm not in a bad spot. So
one actionable item that for people who live in rural areas and people who live in or who are military, VA still has 0% financing or 0% down financing, and USDA also has 0% down to buy your primary property. So there's options out there for anybody who's like, I can't afford a house. Like if you can still buy a 0% down and just pay for closing, you can still afford a house as long as you can afford the payments to get approved for it. People like Jay are going to have that kind of information for you. So talk to a realtor like him who's knowledgeable. So Jay, I was going to ask you the last two questions and it's eluding me. If you can go back and give yourself advice, your younger self, whether it be teens, 20s, 30s, whatever it might be, what advice would you go back and give yourself?
I would start a lot earlier. My son is a sophomore in college and he's dead set on buying his first rental property when he graduates college. So he sees it. He's a lot smarter than me, but he sees that. And I wish I would have started earlier. I wish I could have. I passed on some deals because I was scared. I was nervous, and now oftentimes I'm a little nervous on some deals, but I pull the trigger on them and move forward with them. I didn't do that in the past. I look back at some of the homes that I had that I maybe flipped that would have kept as nice rentals, kind of kick myself now. Because for me, I'm looking longevity, right? But when I was 20 years old, just getting on the fire department, I wasn't thinking about this time of my life, right? I'm thinking about, when's the next time we're going out somewhere with the buddies, or when are we going to some type of out of town school training, whatever, right? That's what I thought about. I wish now that I would have thought a little more further down the road.
Less beers in the belly and more money in the bank.
For sure.
All right. Is there anything we missed that you want to touch on before we wrap this up?
No, guys, I appreciate it. I'm gonna start, checking you guys out a little bit more. I do get some good information on your Facebook page. I think you have a lot of knowledgeable people on there in that family, in that group there. So I look forward to seeing your all stuff, and I appreciate you having me on.
And the podcast, Jay, I want to plug the podcast before you can hop off here. What's the name of your podcast you're starting up or running?
Yeah, so we've got a podcast. It's me and two of the guys at my office. It's called Real Estate Unfiltered. It's Mayor Realtors Real Estate Unfiltered. It's on Spotify, Podbean, all the social media platforms, YouTube. We're beginning stages of it. We've only got 6 or 7 episodes under our belt. Very similar to your all's type of format. We bring people in. And most of our stuff is we sprinkle in a little real estate, but then we talk about other stuff, right? We're not inundating people with, these are the rates, these are the terms, we're bringing people in. We've had authors on, we've had people that have written movies, we've had musicians, all kinds of different things on. And then we bring in, occasionally like mortgage guys, home inspectors, things like that. But I like to say we just sprinkle it in a little bit, but sprinkle in the real estate. But it's just a down to earth show, a lot like your all's. There's a lot of, sidebar conversations, and we just have a good time with it.
So one more time, the name of it? It's
called Mayor Realtors Real Estate Unfiltered.
Okay. Yeah. We'll try to put it in the show notes.
Yeah, I was going to say, if we can get the link, we can put it in the show notes and kind of share it.
Sure. Yeah.
All right, Jay, spent an hour and 3 minutes with us. Thank you very, very much. Don't hop off at the end of this. And anybody listening, like, follow, share, and also link up with Jay's podcast. I'm sure you're going to get some knowledge off of that one too. Hopefully he'll have Mike, Tyler, and maybe me on there one day if we're
can do that.
If we're worthy.
He said he wanted knowledgeable. Okay.
All right, guys. I don't even know what episode this is. Somewhere in the 30s. Thanks for listening and spending an hour with us.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks again for spending some time with us today. If you found value in anything you heard, please share with someone who may benefit. We look forward to connecting between shows in our Facebook group, First Responder Financial Freedom. Till next time.